Hello, old chum. If you stick around, you will hear about the Batman. He's kind of a big deal. The Fantasmagorium is pleased to present Capes, Cowls, and Crusaders, a show about the Batman. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids of all ages, I have broken the first rule of a review show. I haven't seen this movie. Kat is here. Ernesto is a bat expert. Jill is absolutely disappointed in me, and I am Scotty R37. Welcome to Capes, Cowls, and Crusaders review of the Lego Batman movie, a movie that I would like you all to tell me about.
We will. It has really fun music and everything.
Good. I did actually. Okay, so I watched the first half hour.
Where did you stop?
Because it turned into the lower decks of Batman. Lower Decks being the Star Trek show Lower Decks, where they make fun of all of the tropes of that genre, and I didn't appreciate it at all. And when confronted with the fact that I had to watch it, I was like, "Now, you know what? I'm going to let my co-hosts tell me about it."
Then you can't give this movie any batarangs.
I can't give it any fucking batarangs because I don't want to.
Well,
we can at least allow him to give a batarang to the first 30 minutes.
And yeah. And you know what? I want all of the scorn because this is a first, but there was nothing in me that was motivating me to watch it. I kind of understood what it was in the first 30 minutes. Why am I wrong?
Well, first of all, Lower Decks pretends it's Star Trek at the same time making fun of it. This movie doesn't pretend that it is part of the larger Batman universe. It is the universe of the Lego movies are structured around these children who are playing with Legos, and they are the ones who are creating these stories. So pretty much it's a couple of kids who really love Batman and made this story.
Well, in terms of context, you did send me that link saying that in context, this is what a children's perception of Batman is.
Yes, but wildly more entertaining, I think, than, say, Batman 66, which is also aimed at children.
I don't know. I don't know because, like, what I did see did make fun of Batman 66.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's making fun of all Batman eras.
So it's making fun of Batman.
Well, no, it's basically an extension of the meme, kind of like from the How It Should Have Ended videos, which feature the end, like Batman hanging out in the diner with Superman and the other characters, and that's kind of what it is. And it's taking the zaniness of the Lego stuff and telling an actual Batman movie, a theatrical Batman movie about the Bat family, which is something that the other animated films are, direct to video for the most part, and they haven't really dived into that in the live action stuff. But this actually had a story to tell, an actual arc involving the Bat family, and going against what a lot of the filmmakers do, which is always try and portray Batman as, the solo guy. Like not since the Schumacher films, which perhaps because they're so heavily derided with Robin, they didn't bring him back. I mean, I get that they invented Robin as a kid's like counterpart to Batman, which I don't get why, because they didn't feel the need to do that with other superheroes of the day. But I thought the Schumacher Robin story worked for that. I mean, the tone of those movies aside, I thought the Robin in there worked for that. So the fact that all these other Batman movies we're seeing are just reluctant to revisit any aspect of the Batman family, like everything's going back to Batman in his early days, or even the Ben Affleck Batman, they alluded to the fact that he used to have a Robin, but he didn't anymore. And so this is like, no, we're going to do this as a comedy, granted, but it goes like all in on it.
Adding to the Robin conversation, I believe it was, unless I'm mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe after this movie came out, Chris McKay was starting to make the rounds about pitching a Nightwing movie that would have been set in the Zack Snyder Justice League universe to go along with Ben Affleck's Batman. But then around that time, it was kind of like, a back and forth between Zack Snyder and the fans about, oh well, which Robin was it that the Joker killed in Batman v Superman? Was it Tim Drake? Was it uh, Richard Grayson? Or was it Jason Todd? And he always said Dick Grayson, which I'm like, why did you have to say Dick Grayson? Of all the Robins, you chose the most popular one.
Yeah.
And then, interesting enough, in the comics, at least in the more modern iterations, I think after Crisis on Infinite Earths, the whole point that they were trying to make with Batman having a Robin is that Batman needs a Robin to center himself, to not allow him to go fully into the dark, to not let his rage overconsume him, to somebody so that he can work off of, somebody that can kind of like remind him what his goal as the Cape Crusader is. Because once Dick Grayson left, then he got Jason Todd, but Jason Todd died. And after Jason Todd died, Batman went back to his darker roots. He started becoming more vicious, more violent towards even a two-bit criminal. Then Tim Drake stepped up to the plate to say Batman always needs a Robin.
Well, two things. First thing is I like the rationalization of Batman incorporating Robin from Darwin Cook's New Frontier. And New Frontier is a shining beacon of golden era or silver age superheroes, Justice League specifically. And it does incorporate Robin as when Batman realized that he was trying to save children, but children were afraid of him. And I like that Batman was like, you know, at a certain point, the whole striking terror into my enemies is going to bleed over to my allies as well. And I don't want to necessarily be 100% like intimidating. There should be a shining light. And Robin is a shining light of Batman's willingness to work with others and the Bat family.
And that's precisely the role that Robin plays in this movie, is to be a bright force for Batman.
Well, and when I was watching the first half hour of the movie, it seemed like they were making fun of Robin.
You don't say.
He doesn't even show up in the first half hour, does he?
I only watched the first half hour, and he did. He showed up, and he's like, "Are you in the market to adopt an orphan?" And it's like, no. Like, I appreciate it that, like, the little dog who jumps around the big dog. I understand. I don't like this. I didn't like the first half hour of this movie.
You do realize it's a comedy, right? It's not trying to be like the Batman animated films.
I know, and I feel really stupid that I feel like it's a criticism of how I feel about Batman.
Well, how do you feel? I would ask you about the Austin Powers films as they relate to James Bond.
That's an interesting parallel, but the thing is that those are Austin Powers movies. They're not James Bond movies. This one says Batman in the title.
But those films are clearly styled on all the tropes and stuff of James Bond from start to finish.
Sure, but they're also just 60s sci-fi, 60s spy films.
Right,
they're
but
not
also criticizing in the same way by having fun with it, just like the Lego Batman movie is.
Well, and also, I would like to say, and please jump down my throat on this, is that I've only seen the first half hour. Maybe I didn't hug and learn as the movie intended me to.
That means you didn't get to see all the awesome cameos from the Warner Brother villains over the decades.
I saw Conan O'Brien as the Riddler, and I saw Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. I was good.
No, I mean the Gremlins, like Stripes.
No, I didn't.
The first
didn't
one.
See the Gremlins.
Godzilla, King Kong, Voldemort, Sauron's Eye, the Daleks that have a bit of a role in this. From
oh no, yeah, I got the Daleks.
Dalek.
I'm pretty sure that was the Kraken, not Godzilla. It had four arms.
Oh, it was the Kraken?
Oh, the Kraken? Okay.
Fair enough.
The green one.
I could be wrong, but it looked like the Kraken to me because it had four arms.
Well, how do you? Okay, we got to check in with the chat.
Or something like that's something that looked like the creature from the Black Lagoon, even though that's Universal, but it looked just like it as one of the smaller.
Probably.
That was the part where I said that there was going to be some kind of multiverse thing. Is that
Or
and
just the
all the
licensing
different
because it's Lego.
right,
It's
Yeah.
licensing.
Oh, it's true.
right. So
The
yeah,
same way
since-
that the original Lego movie had the Millennium Falcon and Chewbacca and Harrison Ford's voice. I think it was Harrison Ford, unless they had a good voiceover for it to sound like Harrison Ford.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, so that's that makes sense. And then it probably was a Creature from the Black
I mean,
Lagoon.
it had Rexy and Blue in it, so it is licensing at that point. It's free marketing.
Yeah, that's true because they're in the movie too.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had all of that stuff, which is really neat. I especially like the even older callback that the Gremlins are actually attacking the Batplane, much like how the Legend of Gremlins first started up. That's the thing. Everybody said you have problems with airplanes, Gremlins in the plane. You see Stripes leading the troops to disassemble the plane and stuff like that. But it's like, it's a comedy, and I like the little things too. Like they got Billy D. Williams to voice Two-Face.
Yeah.
Which I thought they should have done that for the animated film Batman and Robin versus Two-Face, but they got William Shatner instead. Because
but I prefer that.
because Billy D. Williams never got his time to shine in that role, so it's like they got to give him that.
Well, it would make sense for an animated Batman '89 movie for him to be Two-Face, just for continuity.
Yeah, but Batman '66, I like that Shatner voiced because Shatner. Well, weren't they trying to get Clint Eastwood for Two-Face?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah. They also have Zoe Kravitz voicing Catwoman in this, which is interesting because she goes back to play Catwoman in the new live action Batman movie.
Meow.
And I'm pretty sure nobody remembered that she voiced it in the first place.
Yeah. Ray Fiennes.
It's a nothing role.
Ray Fiennes is Alfred, but not as Voldemort.
Oh, really?
Eddie Izzard is Voldemort.
Yeah, they got somebody else for that, which is funny.
I did like Ray Fiennes as
Ray Fiennes
Alfred.
was a very inspired choice for Alfred.
Yeah.
I can totally see him wearing the butler attire and serving a platter.
I really liked all the meta jokes in this movie. Like when the new Commissioner Gordon Barbara says, Batman, all you really do is go around beating up poor people and just, letting the criminals run wild around town. What do you really do? And I thought I gotta laugh out of that. And other meta joke, like the whole running with the whole thing that Batman's smarter than everybody else and goes to the Fortress of Solitude, to see Superman and finds out that none of the Justice League like him either because this is a takeoff of all those parodies. But it's just, I just like that it was really funny, kind of poking fun a lot. Like in the beginning when the Joker's like, the guys, you're never gonna get away with this. He's like, of course I am. I always win. So what about that time with the ferry boats? That doesn't count. What about the time with all the parade, with all the balloons and
the Prince music?
And the Prince music. I thought that was really good.
I liked the unnecessarily complicated bomb.
Yeah, they call it that. The unnecessarily complicated bomb. Bane being a ploy and all the memes that came out of Dark Knight Rises.
Well, they do that right from the onset of the logos.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have music and logos. And the songs that are incredibly tense.
It turns out that Will Arnett picked the way to say the Batman voice as a way, as a parallel to how he talks to his children when he's telling them special, important things.
I want you to know this very clearly. Yeah, it makes sense.
Or like them sitting around watching the Jerry Maguire scene where he says, "You complete me." That's where they got that idea for Dark Knight. Or that was funny little stuff like that just kind of peppers through the film, and a lot of sight gags. Each time I watch this movie, I notice some other obscure character like off on the peripheral that I didn't notice before.
Yeah, and lots of the Lego animations and stuff are things you could never see in other Batman movies because of the animation.
Oh yeah, the animation in this film is gorgeous.
Well, to be fair, it looks a lot like Lego.
Yeah, but a lot better than, say, even what you get from animated Lego commercials. It's like, this is like really great.
This is the good Lego.
Well, yeah, and that's part of this universe. Is Batman's also a master builder, like from the Lego movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Jr. Jackson is here, and he says hello. And he loves the Lego Batman movie.
He loves
I
everything.
do, too. I like
Lemon Pie is
when
here.
he's when Poison Ivy tries to kiss him and he gets all the penguins poisoned.
All the penguins. I did see that. Captain Infinity is here and says, so what is this now? 8 canonical cinematic Batmans?
Also, the bit where they're going over all the bat suits, he's like, yeah, that one might be a little cultural appropriation. Whoever's recycling through all the ridiculous stuff he's worn over the years, and that they end up using the Reggae Man suit for Robin.
Yeah, Captain Infinity, you actually don't really have to worry about canon in this movie because this is basically kids playing with their Legos and a really good story told around it.
So I can't wait to hear what...
And if you are concerned with canonical storytelling with this movie, then you need to go out and smell the roses.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting, Ernesto. Is this just so out of universe that you should look at it as a comedic, pleasant cover? Or like a Weird Al Yankovic song?
Well, it works like that, especially if you've seen all the films in Batman media that it's referencing.
Okay. But some would call that fan service or member berries.
Well,
it's funny that. Yes.
It's not really member berries because you're not having those characters like different versions of the Batman and Batman villains from those movies cameoing. They're just making jokes about it. Like I mentioned with the Joker, like what about that time on the ferry boats with the Prince music? It's like, well, you don't get the joke if you haven't seen Batman 89 or Dark Knight.
Right. So if you haven't seen those movies, this isn't a really like this is more of a love letter to the fans who have seen the Batman movies than it is doing anything on its own, really.
Well,
or at least from the first half hour.
Well, it does something on its own, and like I said, in terms of the storyline with the Bat family, the story of how Batman. They take the old joke of, like I mentioned, how he's always, for the most part, alone in a lot of the comics or in a lot of the, or rather the filmed adaptations that they've been doing, and
Yes.
they take that joke meme from things like how it should have ended and decided, well, let's have the character arc be that he comes to accept having a Bat family. And that's the story of the movie. And there's still a story there. And it's populated with enough crazy stuff in it that even if the kids haven't seen the other movies, the kids are still going to have fun with it. It still tells a story and has a character arc in it.
Yeah, my kid watched this movie 100 times.
Tom Jr. Jackson in the chat says, why are you a pedantic fun sucker, Scott? I appreciate that.
It's because he's an old man and he likes naps.
I do enjoy napping. Captain Infinity says Austin Powers doesn't have James Bond in the title. That's what makes it different from the parody of the Lego Batman and Austin Powers, is that Austin Powers...
The comparison is still completely valid because it's obvious that that's what the entire Austin Powers trilogy is based on. Even
but if it was called James Bond, the Spy Who Shagged Me, then yes, I would agree.
Well, that's simply for rights reasons, but it's obvious all three of those movies are based entirely on the Bond franchise, and that's what Barbara Broccoli said. She's like, after she saw those movies, it's like we had to reinvent it. We can't go back to do what we were doing before. And to her credit, they didn't. And so,
yes, to their credit, they did not make Blofeld James Bond's brother.
Right, but what I'm saying is that it's clear the Austin Powers movies obviously are based on that Captain Infinity. You can't really ignore that because it's not.
No, and I think that Infinity is on my side with it in terms of because the Lego Batman movie has Batman in the title character, the person that we are making fun of, and whereas Austin Powers is
But we're not that thick to not understand what they're really doing in the Austin Powers movies. We get what they're obviously doing and that it's a rights issue, which is why they can't use it.
Right. For sure. But there is some weight carried with the name of Batman.
Well, but the only reason Lego Batman movie can get away with it is because it's a Warner Brothers DC movie. If it wasn't, they wouldn't.
It is made by the same studio. That's correct. Yes.
Right. And that's why they're able to do that. But you could just as easily have made another film with another character. Like there have been a lot of knockoffs and other kids' cartoon shows that are inspired by Batman, even some voiced by Adam West and other shows. But because the studio is different, they can't call it Batman, so they come up with another name like Catman or something ridiculous, and that's clearly a play on the whole, Batman mythos. But this one, DC and Warner Brothers had no problem poking fun at it and having fun and still making a movie out of it.
Yes. Well, and like the Lego movie was made by Lord and Miller, right?
Yes, they were on board as writers, and they had help with that, other writers as well.
Are they producers on this film?
I believe so. Yes.
And so there is that sort of again, their style, the self-referential humor and whatnot, and good. And as again pointed out to me, this is kids playing with their Legos.
Yeah, but it's not just kids playing with their Legos. There's an actual story there, and there's actual character arcs still.
Yeah, and that's great. And in addition to adding Robin, they also integrate Batgirl into it, and
I love
they introduce
Rosario
her in a really
Dawson.
neat way. They introduce her kind of like an antagonist who Batman sees as going against him, but really she just wants to bring in the rest of the police force in on what Batman's doing and work more as a team.
And outlaw vigilantism.
Yeah, but then right. But then when all of the villains come from the Phantom Zone, she realizes she needs Batman. So it all comes together. Really sweet way.
And to your point, Scott, how when we were reviewing Dark Knight Rises last week, and you're like, no, once the bridges blow up, this is too big of a problem for Batman. In a similar fashion, once the Phantom Zone, all the other Warner Brothers IP villains escape from the Phantom Zone, even when Batman embraces the new Bat family of Batgirl, Robin, and Alfred, he's like, this still isn't big enough. We need an army, and the army that shows up are all the other Batman villains who Joker left in Arkham for being a bunch of sucker cosplayers who couldn't help him. And so it's like acknowledging the notion that, yeah, if it gets too big, you actually do need more help because it gets to a point where it's like, yeah, you're not going to solve this on your own.
And don't they make kind of a joke to Suicide Squad?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, that's such a stupid idea. Getting a bunch of villains to help us go kill us to stop other villains is such a dumb idea. That was Barbara's idea to do that, which is kind of neat because Barbara's the new commissioner, and it's kind of a play on Amanda Waller's idea of using the Suicide Squad to go out and, perform impossible tasks like that.
Well, I did appreciate that this is like the first and only of the big screen performances of Clayface.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Clayface. Like I enjoyed all of the people that they brought back, like in terms of obscure references.
I wish Clayface got to actually transform into other things, though. More often than not, he was kind of in the big, just mushy clay thing.
Yes.
Then there's other characters who don't have dialogue that you see. Like there's Hugo Strange is in there.
Oh, cool.
You got Egghead is in there throwing eggs in the bat signal. And I like how they make that joke at the expense of the Burton Schumacher films about how the first and only thing Commissioner Gordon would ever do in those movies when there's a problem is immediately call Batman. And so they take out the bat signal and they act like, headless chicken's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't call Batman. And it's like, okay, that's kind of funny. And then there's other things like the Mad Hatter. He doesn't have any dialogue, but he's in the background, and just all sorts of other little Batman characters that are there to be seen.
Yeah, like the Condiment King.
Condiment King.
I love that they actually stop the rapid fire montage when they get to Condiment King to just acknowledge the absurdity of this. And the pilots of the airplane turn to Joker like, are you sure you made that up? That can't be real. And he's like, sure they are. Google it.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the references that sort of soured me.
Well, no, because it's celebrating the zaniness of it. It's like, yeah, we did silly things like this back in the day, but we're going to have it portray it now in a more appropriate venue, which is animation, because how animated that idea is.
No, I wasn't soured by the diverse and ridiculous nature of Batman's rogues gallery. I was turned off by a cartoon character telling me to Google something.
Well, he wasn't. Well, because
I didn't like the joke, and that's all.
Well, the joke isn't that he's telling you to Google it. The joke is that it's real. Is that they didn't make it up for the movie. That these were actual characters that they used in the past.
I just don't like it when people tell me to Google things.
So what if I tell you to DuckDuckGo it?
Well, then that's a horse of a different color.
A lot of real world modern day references are in movies that people will acknowledge. I mean,
no, I know. But like, it's like, it's worth a Google. I was like,
another thing this movie does as far as a story point is they take up the Joker's recurring theme in the Batman comics about how he's really obsessed with fighting Batman, that he feels that they're kind of simpatico, and the idea that the Joker is like completely shell-shocked and almost heartbroken at the idea that Batman doesn't consider him a worthy adversary. You're just like one of the other guys, and you see how that genuinely bothers him. Just kind of like another play off the Dark Knight when the Joker laughs at the implication that he would kill Batman. He's like, well, what am I going to do without you? There's like nothing to, he's like, no, there's nothing to do because you complete me. And they take that to its, and because of the meta joke about you complete me from Dark Knight, which is a play on Jerry Maguire, which they put back in this movie, they decided to make the Joker's whole arc and his whole spiel, his whole evil plan is motivated by how hurt he is that Batman doesn't really see anything special about their rivalry.
Yes. That was clever.
Like they're actually turning that into an actual story point. And I mean, when you have so many zany characters, they could have come up with any ridiculous plot they wanted to, but at the heart of the plot is this actual character arc for both of these characters that is a play on something that's been in the comics forever. The Joker alluding to this relationship, or Batman trying to push away. Because even in the comics, Batman tries to push away from it and never really wants to embrace the Joker. Like even in the Killing Joke, when Batman's trying to have this reckoning with him that I don't want your death on my hands type of thing, and the Joker kind of tells him off. He's just like, you want me to meet you halfway, but you're not willing to meet me halfway on my philosophy. And you kind of have the same thing going on here, where Batman doesn't want to acknowledge the Joker in any way like that, whereas the Joker gets all he wants from him, which is kind of like, so this is in a sense a much zanier, insane animated ploy on that central conflict between Batman and Joker as presented in the Killing Joke, in what was there a much darker way, whereas this is much funner, family-friendly version.
Yeah, it is. Now, have you ever seen the Diedrich Bader Batman Brave and the Bold?
A couple episodes.
I prefer that to this.
Okay.
Just in terms of the family-friendly Batman referential gallery. Now, I understand that this is a movie and Brave and the Bold is a TV show. But this one, again, this is sort of that sardonic, tongue-in-cheek, making fun of what I love kind of humor, as opposed to really embracing it and enjoying the humor of the situation. Like, I think Brave and the Bold is a much warmer hug than this movie.
What do you say? Have you seen the Harley Quinn series?
No, I have not.
Okay. I was going to make a reference there, maybe not.
Please do. I haven't even seen this movie, Kat.
In a reference in the sense that movie too kind of does a similar version of the same idea. It's just much more adult-oriented humor, but it's still doing the zaniness. Like the other night when Steve was sharing the video clip of Bane, and it's the same type of idea. He's a riff on the Dark Knight Rises version of Bane, but a lot of the jokes in there, a lot of the jokes are silly, but some of the jokes are over the top and stuff that you can't put in the kids' product. And again, I go back to the Austin Powers thing. It's like, yeah, they don't have to say the name James Bond, but the tropes and the references are so in your face in that movie that I'm not bothered by the fact that it's, making fun of it, because you can have fun with it. Because like I could watch something that's completely ridiculous and silly and stupid, like say Gremlins 2, which is so funny because you have like Gremlins actually, like the intellectual gremlin who hosts a TV show, and it's funny and it's ridiculous, but I love it. I don't mind that it's taking what was like the Simple Monsters from the first one and putting a silly spin on it. It's great. And that's kind of what I felt the same way about Austin Powers, and that's just, as it is relates to Bond, and I feel the same way about Lego Batman movie as it relates to Batman.
Well, but again, and I don't know how to convey this accurately, but there is a difference when you're making fun of something if you make fun of it by name. So if it was James Bond going and doing a James Bond thing, and then Sean Connery turns it on its ear, or, they have Craig Ferguson voice the Lego version of James Bond, and they turn it on its ear, it's like, okay, this is the series itself making a commentary upon itself, whereas Austin Powers is the character Austin Powers. He didn't fight Blofeld. He has Dr. Evil. They're not the same people. They're not the same character. So when Austin Powers alludes to a James Bond situation, it's an illusion as opposed to being, no, this is something silly that I did before. What a ridiculous me. And in the Lego Batman movie, for the first half an hour, Batman is like, no, this is way different than the two boats. This is
Well, I
way
think
different than the parade
that
with
this is a
the
really
Prince
fun
music.
exploration of Batman's relationship with everyone around him.
But this is also why I sort of equate it with Lower Decks. Is that this is a franchise commenting on itself.
But I explained why it can't be Lower Decks. This is kids playing
No,
with
I
their Lego
understand.
toys, and
Exactly,
Lower
and
Decks
that's
wants
yeah.
to be canon. This doesn't want to be canon. This is.
Yeah, I mean, this movie acknowledges the other tiers of Batman canon by making all those in-house references.
There's all the references to everything.
But it's
I
still,
like the only one that gets to be live and on screen is Adam West. It's great.
yeah, that's true. But in much the same way that Austin Powers, you actually have number 2, and he's dressed the same way. You got Dr. Evil looks the same way as the classic Blofeld, and it's like, okay, I see what you're doing there. But with Lego Batman, it's like they're having fun. Because, I mean, admittedly, when you look at some of the stuff in Batman 66, like Egghead, the running joke with Egghead is that nobody believes that it's an actual real character until you Google it and go and show them that, no, it actually was real. And so they give him something funny to do, which is shooting all of the scrambled eggs at the bat signal so they can't call Batman. Which is kind of funny, and I like how they animated Egghead to even look like Vincent Price in the Lego bit that he's there.
Did you see the news today, Kat, that they just cast Egghead for Matt Reeves, the Batman 2? It's Bill Hader. Bill Hader is going to be Egghead.
That'd be funny.
Well, one of my problems with that Dark Knight Rises with the Joseph Gordon-Levitt being Robin was that he wasn't even an acrobat or in circus or anything like that. At least in this one, Robin is definitely an acrobat.
Jill, are you attracted to Robin?
I would say that I do like Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, okay. I was talking about Michael Cera as Robin in the Lego Batman movie.
I like Michael Cera too. Scott Pilgrim is one of my favorite movies.
Mine too.
And I do like the relationship he has with Batman, and Batman telling him what to do, and he steals the Phantom Zone thingy. What is it called? The projector.
Mm. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I also think the film is paced very well. It kind of jumps from each thing, but it's still like clearly you could follow each little set that's happening. It doesn't feel like there's any detours or side quests. It's all staking very relevant. One boom, boom, boom through the whole story.
So what happens? What is the plot of this movie, Kat?
I guess I'll do the recap then. So
I'm still here, by the way.
The Joker.
Thank heavens.
The Joker and all of these Arkham villains wreaking havoc on Gotham. And he believes he's come up with his best plan yet because, they're not going to be able to call Batman to it's too late. They're taking over. You have all of those in-house references, and they're basically setting the table for what the whole movie is going to be. And then Batman rips off his disguise and reveals that he was already there all along. He attacks, and as Jill mentioned, there's a bit with like Poison Ivy where he has to keep using the penguins to block his for the balloons. He calls the bat plane to him remotely, and you have all this crazy stuff happen. And the Joker tries to escape with his own set of party balloons, and Batman catches him on his grapple. And as he's escaping, the Joker alludes to the notion of their relationship, and he wants Batman to acknowledge that given this grand master plan he had, that I must be your greatest foe of all time. And Batman's like, no. And it's like, and the Joker's totally taken aback by the fact that Batman doesn't seem to think that he's not impressed by him. He's like, well, what do you mean no? And he kind of goes on about it, and then the grappling hook kind of breaks, and he gets away. And then Batman just goes back to Wayne Manor, and it's kind of like a joke that all the villains get away, even though Batman saved the day by preventing the Joker's unnecessarily complicated bomb from blowing up the city. Because according to some scientist who appears on this big jumbotron in Gotham Plaza, Gotham City is built on like over nothingness, like this bottom.
Oh right, yeah. It's built on these plates that are
a tectonic shoal.
And that comes into play later. The Lego aspect of this movie is taken very seriously.
Yeah, so the city's gonna fall apart otherwise. But Batman stops the bomb. The villains get away. The Joker's really upset that Batman doesn't seem to care. And so from there, we go back to Wayne Manor. where
Or are you getting your Lego set? Do you have a Lego set of Wayne Manor?
The PS5 turned off and it turned the TV back on. But
Oh.
we go back to Wayne Manor where Batman basically lives just totally alone. He doesn't have any friends or allies, and Alfred shows up to try and see how he is, and he just does this karate chop, throwing him into the piano, and he apologizes for it. And Alfred tells him that you got to get to the, he has to go to the presentation for the orphans or something like that. Oh no, he goes to the presentation of the orphans when he's on his way back to Wayne Manor from saving the city, driving in the Batmobile, and everybody's praising him, and you could tell Batman has this huge.
I love you more than my kids.
Yeah.
Himself, and he goes down to the orphanage to impress the kids, and without thinking about it, he agrees unintentionally to adopt this kid. And so when he gets back to Wayne Manor and you see this, how huge it is and how empty everything is, how he just sits around, watching movies and like making Lego food in the microwave and little jokes like that. That Alfred,
he eats the shell of the lobster.
Yeah, and Alfred says you have to take some time off now to take care of your son. And he's like, what do you mean, my son? And he introduces Robin. He's like, Alfred, what the hell would you know about being a surrogate father? I'm going to take care. And he kind of insults him that way, but insisting he's going to take care of the kid. He knows how to deal with this shit.
Yeah, and it's paralleled with how Alfred is taking care of Batman.
Right, and so we saw at the party for the charity thing for the orphans, they have a big announcement of Commissioner Gordon's retirement party, basically. And introduce his daughter Barbara Gordon, as she's the new commissioner, and she lays out the new rules. And Batman, or Bruce Wayne rather, arrives at the party, and he's listening to her outlining everything that's going to work. How they're going to get rid of vigilantism because Batman just beats up poor people and lets all the villains get away. And she kind of turns the crowd against Batman by pointing out that he's kind of a failure, and we need to work together. And yes, we could take the good things about Batman, his gadgets, his mantras, and all that, and apply it to the police force and actually clean up the city and make it a better place. And Bruce is kind of miffed by this, but she insists that they're going to do it anyway. And so during the party, the Joker suddenly arrives and crashes it and brings all the villains, and everybody's panicking. Batman shows up, or he changes into his Batman costume and decides to fight them. But then Joker surprises everybody by saying he's surrendering.
And then he makes everybody else surrender too.
Yeah, and the others don't want to surrender, but he ends up using this contraption to zap them in like a Jack-in-the-Box present to lock them up. They get sent to Arkham, but Commissioner Barbara Gordon knows that this is obviously a ruse. She's outside Arkham Asylum and sees Batman standing on a streetlight over the barbed wire fence. And she's like, Batman, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just surveying the area to make sure they're all locked up and we got all the Joker's running loose in the prison. She's like, he's not running loose. He's in a cell, but obviously he's up to something. We have to figure out what it is. And this laundry truck shows up that says Phantom's own laundry service. And Batman's like, that's it. The Joker wants to use the Phantom Zone for something. And she's like, no, we're not going to. How can he do that? She's like, but we'll just send him to the Phantom Zone to keep the city. That's the only way to keep the city safe forever. And she's like, no, Batman, we're not sending him to the Phantom Zone. It's extremely corrupt and evil and way outside our jurisdiction. We have no way of doing that.
Is the Phantom Zone evil?
She considers the idea that given what the Phantom Zone is, like you send somebody there and they can never ever get out or be reformed, then she considers that cruel and unusual punishment, and plus that's Superman's deal. But Batman decides that he's going to go there anyway, so he goes back to Wayne Manor. Robin's there.
The fact that Barbara thinks that that's too cruel for the Joker is probably the joke itself.
Exactly, and the fact that she's obviously
that would be exactly enough punishment for the Joker.
Yeah, but it makes sense for her character because she's talking about laws and ethics, and she thinks that whatever crimes he's done before, then that he needs to that there needs to be a sentencing of
I know, but I'm just saying that she thinks that it's. I know, but she thinks that that's too cruel for the Joker, and I think like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Also very. You can tell also she's very progressive. Like when she's complaining about Batman beating up poor people, which, okay, you're beating up criminals, but it's not like he goes around beating up innocent people. But we have to feel bad. They're poor. That's why they commit their, that kind of thing. It's like, okay. So Batman decides he's not going to take her up on her offer. He doesn't. She invites him to work with her.
Hey, wait. Are you wearing a Bane coat?
I do have my coat.
Okay, I was just checking. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took me this long to say nice Bane coat.
And so he goes back to Arkham, or he goes back to Wayne Manor and finds that Alfred has let Robin into the Batcave. He's like, Robin, what are you doing? Or Alfred, what are you doing? He's like, no, Monster Bruce, I didn't let him into the Batcave. I let him into your heart. And so they go down into the Batcave, and Robin finds all the different Batman costumes, and Bruce is like, or Batman's like, adult dress-up parties are for, adults only, not for kids. And he insists that he's not Bruce Wayne, that he's just like his roommate, and we're both your dads now, and you can't really do the blah blah blah. But Alfred insisted it would be okay, and so Robin ends up picking the Reggae Man suit for the Jamaican caper that Batman apparently went undercover for at some point to become. He takes pieces of it and makes it the Robin costume, and and it has pants, and Robin's complaining that the pants are too tight. I can't really kick or do anything, so then he rips the pants off, so he has the shorts, and so they get in the Batplane, and Batman's like, fine, you can come with me, but I got to teach you the rules of being a superhero and that kind of thing. And so they're going to take off. And he says, but Batman, we got to put on our seatbelts. He's like, first rule of being Batman, life does not have any seatbelts. And so, yeah, which was really, I thought that was kind of funny, but so they take off.
No, it is fun. No, it is funny because the obvious thing happens and Robin gets a little bit hurt from it, and Batman slows down the Batmobile or whatever and backs out slowly, and you could see right away that he's getting into being a father figure.
Right. And so they
and says that he promises to install seatbelts later.
Yeah, so
he does? Okay.
Yeah, so they take off to the Fortress of Solitude. And he's like, the second rule of being a superhero is to do whatever I say. Let's try it out. So he tells him to do a bunch of stuff, like a kick, a backflip, a triple X, and all that kind of stuff. And then he's like, okay, now your mission, you're going to go inside, sneak through the upper cave of the vents there, and steal the Phantom Zone projector while I keep Superman distracted, because he, like me, likes to be alone with his thoughts and brooding, and I can take care of this. And Robin's like, okay. So he goes inside to go get the Phantom Zone projector, while Batman goes inside the fortress to find that there's a super 50th anniversary DC Justice League party going on.
Oh, I missed out.
And Batman's like, hey, what's this? And Superman, voiced by Channing Tatum.
Yes, Charming Tater.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, Batman, what are you doing here? Didn't you? Oh, you must not have gotten the invitation or something. And one of the other heroes is like, yeah, I don't get them all the time either. He's like, see, simple explanation. Well, join the party. And
sometimes I don't get Superman's emails for years.
Yeah, for years. And the joke obviously is that they clearly don't like him because they all work together as a team and Batman doesn't.
Is Green Lantern there?
Yeah, they're all there. Aquaman, Green Lantern, all the DC superheroes are here.
Yeah, they asked him to take a picture. And
this happened past the first half hour, so I haven't seen this part.
Yeah, and so
you know how when people ask you to take a picture and you know them, but they don't include you in the picture. That's what happens.
I am always the cameraman.
Yes, and so Robin steals the Phantom Zone projector. He gets out. He and Batman leave, and they go to Arkham Asylum, and they're trying to sneak in. And Batman's like, the third rule of being a superhero is be able to blend in with your surroundings and be stealthy as possible. And of course, every time Batman's trying to sneak in, obviously there's nothing inconspicuous about it. And same with Robin, but he criticizes Robin every time, but not himself. And they're getting closer up the stairways to get in, and then he runs right into Barbara. And every time he sees Barbara, they play like a song, and he's like, because he finds her really hot and doesn't want to admit it. So they go in through the checkpoint at Arkham, and they end up having to fight their way through. And he's like, okay, Robin, yeah, you should help me take down all these guys. I know them though. I work with them. And he starts calling them by their names, like Frank and Bill. And they start knocking all the cops out of the way as they go through the X-ray, the X-ray machine. And
actually, I have a question. When they're confiscating Batman's weapons, why is the dolphin in there?
I don't know. That's a good question.
The joke there is that what doesn't he carry in his utility belt?
He has dolphins?
Not that he carries it, it's just that of course he would have a dolphin in there.
Okay. Thank you.
So he gets into the main cell, and the way the Arkham looks is like it's a huge circular tower, and you have on each different level you have these individual cells with huge, big, bulky locked doors with glass or hard plastic, windows that you can see in. And Batman opens the cells and uses the batarang, or he opens the Joker cell and uses the batarang to hold it open before Barbara can override the controls. And then he shoots Joker with the Phantom Zone projector. And Barbara ends up betraying Batman and locking him in Joker's cell, and Robin in another cell. She's like, Batman, how could you do this? And now you've roped a child into this as well. And Robin's like, that's okay, as long as I get a bunk with my dad. And she's like, Batman, I can't. I told you can't be a vigilante anymore. I've outlawed this. Now you have to stay here. And he's like, but I banished the Joker to the Phantom Zone. Everything will be safer. She's like, but Batman, what if you just did for the Joker exactly what he wanted you to do? And he pauses to think about it, but not really. So meanwhile, we go to the Phantom Zone. The Joker arrives, and there's like a floating brick with all these blinking lights that basically welcomes him there, analyzes him to see how evil he is, and there's a whole montage showing how despicable and villainous the Joker is, and that's when all the other cellmates show up from all the other Warner Brothers.
Played by Ellen DeGeneres, right? The brick.
No.
Is she the voice?
No. Wait, who is she then?
It's Phyllis, voiced by Ellie Kemper.
Oh, Ellie Kemper.
Ellie
Okay.
Kemper.
Okay. I just
Unbreakable.
thought
She's
sounded
alive,
like her.
damn it. It's a miracle.
So all the other IPs show up, and at first they're not really impressed with the Joker. He's like, no, I'm bad. I'm really evil. And you're like, yeah. And the other guy's like, yeah, we saw the montage. And he comes up with this evil plan. He's like, he basically tells them about how he was, humiliated, and my hero doesn't trust him. And everybody else is like, yeah, we've heard this story. We get it. The hero beat you and humiliate, all this kind of crap. And he's like, well, we're going to get revenge on him. He's like, yeah. They all get super excited as he's telling him this evil plan that he has. And one of the Raptors is like, well, okay, great, but how are we going to get out of here? And the Joker's like, oh, just leave that to me. And I can't exactly remember how they got out. How did they get out?
Oh, they got out because Harley Quinn had the Phantom Zone projector, and she releases all of it.
That's right, because it's still at Arkham. And so she releases everybody. They go to the city, and Sauron's
Sauron?
Barad-dûr basically pits in the ocean where he offered to turn all the rivers into blood, and Joker's like, that's too dark. He's like, how about lava? He's like, okay. So he turns all the rivers in the archipelago into lava. Yeah. And he's like, and Joker's like, okay, Sauron, use your evil eye to show me where the Batcave is. And he's like, okay, scanning. And he says he found it under Wayne Manor.
And that's really silly because you got to be wearing the ring for Sauron to be able to fight.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hey! And the Lord of the Rings rules.
And the Joker's like, oh, you mean Batman is Bruce Wayne's roommate? And so he says all the villains to raid Arkham, raid Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne's it's not just that Wayne Manor's outside the city; it's on a literal island. To play up the metaphor of the Batman himself, where Bruce Wayne is his island unto himself. And Joker makes the point of not releasing all the other villains from Arkham. Like, they all got excited initially because they thought Joker was going to let him out, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to let out the stupid cosplayers," and they all get disappointed. And so they raid the Wayne Manor. They raid the Batcave, and they turn Wayne Manor and that whole island into like a carnival, like Joker's carnival and all that kind of stuff. And Batman and Robin are still stuck inside, and Robin basically tells him that he's scared. And Batman's like, Batman is not scared of anything except for snake clowns. And Barbara is listening to him, and she's like, "There's no such thing as snake clowns. It's not a thing." He's like, "Yes, it is a thing." And she concedes that, okay, Batman, I admit that I do need you. This plan, this is too big, but I'll let you out on one condition, that we work together as a team. And he has a hard time doing it, but he inevitably accepts because he has no other choice. So then Alfred shows up and gives Batman a suit. Robin's like, cool, I can come along too. He's like, oh, sorry, Alfred didn't bring you your suit. And Robin just rips off his Arkham uniform, and he's already dressed like Robin underneath it. Batman's like, oh, crap. And Alfred then puts on a Batman 66 outfit. And he's like, yes, I miss the old days or whatever. And
I think that's really cute.
Yeah, that's really cute. And so they go to the Batplane, but there's only one seat in the Batplane. He's always alone. So they're all crammed in there super tight as they're flying towards, through the city, back towards Wayne Manor. And as they're flying along, he comes up with this plan. And so Barbara ends up taking the controls, and as Batman tries to fight off the gremlins, which are attacking the Batplane that I mentioned earlier, including guys, Robin and Alfred go outside to try and help him. They get in a shouting match, putting each other in timeout over, because Batman doesn't want them to help because he still doesn't like the idea of being forced to work with the family. He even used a piece of rope to tie the Batplane controls together to use autopilot, as opposed to letting any of the others fly the Batplane because he still doesn't want to work with them. But the rope ends up coming apart, and so Barbara takes the controls, and Batman tells her to fly directly into Sauron's eye. And she's like, that's insane. He's like, just do it. And so he starts flying that way, and the Kraken, I guess it is.
Oh my God.
comes out of the water.
But that was a good point because Barbara trusts Batman there.
Right, and so
you are explaining why I didn't watch.
The Batplane dodges the Kraken or Godzilla, whatever it is, and it shoots out this like water ball, and they dive the Batplane beneath Sauron's eye at the last second, and so the water ball just hits Sauron's eye, and like since it's made of fire, it like puts it out, and the tower Barad-dûr just collapses into the water. And because Sauron's eye was the primary video camera that the Joker was using from Wayne Manor, he can't see what's going on anymore, and he's all upset. The Batplane kind of comes to a somewhat crash landing off the shores of Wayne Island, and they're all celebrating. And you know, Robin and Barbara Gordon and Alfred all want to take a picture and get Batman in the selfie and acknowledge how great of an idea it was. And Batman gets so enthusiastic, he gets out his little computer, which says that he has had like 5,798,000 great ideas, and everybody else has had 0 good ideas. He's like, I'm going to give you all one good idea, and everybody's like all happy, and they're like, okay, it's time for the selfie.
Yeah.
Everybody say Bat Family, and when they say it, Batman even says it, but he feels like, oh, like he's doing this again, and so he ties up his friends and locks them in one of the Bat Gadget plane vehicles and sends them. He's like, go take them to the taco stand at Bloodhaven and get them all a bunch of chimichangas and keep them safe until
an echo. Sorry.
Yeah, until they deal with the problem. And so
I did want to acknowledge Sci-Fi Nation, who just graciously threw $5 at us.
Yeah.
He said, Scotty has all the cool dinks on. Call me for backup on the Edith episode if you need it, Jill. Thanks. You're cool, bud.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sci-Fi Nation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the Batplane thing gets over to Bloodhaven, and as it's heading that way, Barbara reasons with the Bat computer that, well, you know, if he's trying to keep us safe, your prerogative should be to protect Batman first and foremost because you're serving Batman, and we need to help him. He can't do this alone. And the Bat computer says, well, I don't have any commands saying not to rescue Batman. So the Batplane turns around and flies back. Batman, who can't handle the plane himself, they end up coming back to him because he's like, he can't really stop this, and so they have to team up, and they give give Batgirl her own. He sneaks into Wayne Manor, finds the Joker there, and the Joker banishes Batman to the Phantom Zone because the Joker by now has stolen the Phantom Zone projector for himself, and in the Phantom Zone, the brick computer Phyllis basically says, "You're a bad guy." And he's like, "No, I'm not." And she basically sums up everything that he does. It's like you destroy untold amounts of public property. You don't really keep the villains locked up. You don't let anybody help you. You push everybody away. He's like, but I do it to keep them safe. And she's like, is that why you're doing it? And he makes a deal with her saying, look, if you give me 24 hours, I will go back and save the city and bring all the villains back. And Phyllis is like, all the bad guys, making it clear he's referring to Batman as well. And he's like, okay, I promise. So Phyllis sends him out of the Phantom Zone back to Gotham. He unites with Robin Gordon and Barbara Gordon and Alfred. He gives Barbara her own suit, like a Batgirl suit, and they take their they get the new Batmobile. They free all the other villains from Arkham who were like, the Joker said mean things about us, and so they decide to team up to try and stop the Joker.
If you call me Batgirl.
Yeah, you can call me Bat. It's like, if you call me Batgirl, can I call you Batboy? And so they all team up and they start playing cheesy rom-com music. The Joker decides to humiliate Batman more by going through his movie collection and find that he watches a bunch of cheesy rom-coms.
I like rom-coms.
He's like, Batman, for a guy who doesn't like relationships, you sure do have a lot of movies about relationships.
I do. I am Batman. Sorry.
And so they all race in on their different Bat vehicles, and then the Joker unleashes all of his, and he's like, Batman, but the best thing about raiding the Batcave is I found all your wonderful toys. And you have like every Bat gadget, Bat vehicle or Batmobile variant you can imagine, that all the flying types that take off, and you have this big action sequence, which culminates in the Joker destroying the foundations beneath Gotham City, causing the city to break apart, and Batman and the other villains decide that, Batman first decides he's just going to use the grappling hook to grab like a street light to pull the city back together to connect the bricks. But it can't do it. It's not strong enough. So he gets all the other villains to help, but he still can't reach it. and he sees the Joker standing on the other side, and he's like, "Come on, you have to help me." He's like, "No, you don't really care about me, so why should I care about you?" And he's like, "Well, because if you don't save Gotham City, we'll never be able to fight again." And eventually, Joker keeps pushing him on it, and Batman finally concedes that the relationship with the Joker is special, and the Joker gets all teary-eyed, and they unite hands, and all the other villains helping Joker unite, and they kind of the city's pulled back together.
Yeah, all of the citizens also have to help.
Yeah, the citizens have to help. Everybody puts the city back together, and then Batman uses the Phantom Zone projector, and in that final battle sends all the Warner Brothers IP villains back to the Phantom Zone.
Are the Droogs in it?
No,
but there are Agent Smith from.
That's right.
Oh, there are Agent Smiths. Okay.
Yes, and a couple others. There's all sorts of people in this. And then Batman has a tearful goodbye with the Bat family because he decides to keep his promise to go back to the Phantom Zone. And they have this big, long, drawn-out, operatic music as he's like ascending towards the Phantom Zone in slow motion. But then when he gets there, he hits like a glass barrier and falls back down. And Barbara catches him, and he's like, I just had to come back. And do you have a knife?" He's like, "Why?" "So I can cut the tension between us." It just drops him like a rock. He's like, "Okay, that was taking it too far." And Phyllis comes down from the Phantom Zone, and he's like, "But I thought you wanted me to come back. I told you I kept my promise." And she's like, "Yeah, I can see that you've changed, and you did lock up all the villains," which is funny because he didn't lock up all the villains, just the Warner Brothers IP ones that the Joker broke out, but not the Joker and the Riddler and Bane and all those people, because they're the ones who came together to save the city, whereas all the other Warner Brothers IP were just evil and wanted to destroy everything. And so Phyllis decides to give Batman a pass, and everybody cheers, and Batman decides to let all the villains go, including the ones who helped him. And Barbara's like, "Well, should we really be doing this, Batman?" He's like, "Oh, come on. We can afford to give him a 30-minute head start now that they're not going to be a match for the four of us." So he's now embracing the Bat family of Alfred, Robin, and Barbara. And then that segues into they make a meta joke about, are we going to
segues
a segue into a super cheesy, family team up type song like in all these silly movies? And then they do, and they have this heroic like montage.
I like that song.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day.
Okay, that's a good song.
Careful, you're gonna get a strike.
I will.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was from Space Jam, everybody. Moving on.
But this is a much better use of other Warner Brothers and other like Lego licensed IP than the Space Jam New Legacy movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen that.
The theme of the song is that friends are a family you can choose, and that's what.
Yes. And that so your family can be like anybody in that sense, and so it does have those character moments. They do exploit the whole Joker Batman relationship in a driving that point home. You do have the arc with Batman going from being super selfish and egotistical to where he's clearly just saving people for the sake of being self-aggrandizing to actually caring for a change.
Oy vey is Hebrew for
that's what he portrays.
What great singing.
Yeah, that's what he portrays on the outside, but when it comes down to it, he actually does want these interactions.
Yeah, because that's like the Joker saw when he raided his film library, and it's like, yeah, you clearly do want relationships. You just don't really know how to form them because you've been like this Batman thing for so long. And so the movie works because rather than just being kids smashing Legos together or people smashing, like say Star Wars IP together in the case of things like Force Awakens because, hey, it's Star Wars toys. But this movie actually, it does that, but it has a lot of meta jokes, self-referential humor, and it actually took the time to actually have a story, an actual character arcs there as well. So it's not just complete random irreverence, even though that's where most of the humor is emanating from.
Well, do you find the references to be member berries? Do you think that the references in the Lego Batman movie are jangly keys? Because I found them to be jangly keys.
I don't find them to be jangly keys because there's still a story there. It's not just here for the sake of being here.
Okay.
Because as presented, that the villains who Joker breaks out of the Phantom Zone don't have that quasi silly innocence relationship with Batman, because it's in a sense it's being very meta about the comics, where for 80 years Batman has repeatedly captured and locked up these criminals who repeatedly break out to wreak havoc, and it's back and forth, back and forth. And like they mentioned, they're not really doing any real significant harm one way or the other, because it's just like, comic logic, because you have to keep the stories going. Whereas these other villains in the Warner Brothers IP that break out of the Phantom Zone are treated as like legit threats that aren't, because they're not from comics that have been around for 80 years. So like from one-off films or film series like Voldemort from Harry Potter, or Sauron from Lord of the Rings, or Godzilla, or King Kong, or the creature from the Black Lagoon, and the Agent Smiths, and the Gremlins. And so that's why those were all the ones that served a legit threat to Gotham, whereas the rest of it has that playful energy of the comics.
But okay, here the thing that and the reason that I am, Kat, how many shows have we done together about talking about movies when it's you and me specifically getting together to talk about a movie? How many have we done?
Probably in 60, maybe.
Something like that. How many of the movies have I actually watched?
You've watched all of them up to this point.
Up until this is the first time that I have not watched one. And I started watching it, and I was like, I get this joke. I don't need to see the whole movie.
Right. I'm just saying that there's more to the movie than just the joke, because it actually does have.
But
technically you did watch it. You just didn't finish it.
I watched part of it. And you know what, Ernesto? This is one of those situations where I don't think I get any grace on it. I'm not happy about it. I'm not gloating that I didn't see the movie. I should have watched it. It's my fucking job. But like what I'm saying is that I knew that if I didn't see the movie, I could still have a conversation about it. This is like Kat, you and I have been chest to chest about the Batman, and I haven't watched it yet, and I have left it off of the conversational table because I have not seen it, and I have got to see that before I can have an intelligent conversation. With the Batman movie, I feel like, again, the way that Star Trek fans who are insulted by Lower Decks is insulted by Lower Decks. It's like the Batman movie to me is just a little too flippant with the character.
I haven't seen Lower Decks. Is that trying to say it's actually part of the Star Trek continuity?
Yes.
It does try and say it, yeah.
That's a problem then, because if you're doing a tongue-in-cheek kind of humor type show, then you can't, that's self-referential and stuff, then you can't really have it be a part of that same continuity. It's like the Lego Batman movie references the continuities of completely different continuities of Batman, like the Nolan movies and the Burton films and the Schumacher, because it's aware of the fact that it's like, look, this is a Lego movie, just have fun with it. But the fact that Lower Decks is doing that is a completely different thing, because that's where it's like, yeah, I can see why that's a problem, because they're trying to say it's, which obviously it can't be canon if they're trying to make fun of it. That's why that admittedly wouldn't work. But here, this movie isn't doing that. It's not saying it's part of the, it's not like saying that this is in a parallel universe where all of those Batmans and their storylines got sucked in. It's just like its own thing.
But I have to sympathize a bit with Scotty because of the Lower Decks analogy. There are often many points where I watch Lower Decks where they seem to try to be respectful and then disrespectful in the very same kind of from one scene to the next, and switches back and forth. And maybe that's what Scotty's seen.
Yeah, well, this one again is not really trying to say that it's a part of anything. It's kind of like,
right.
I feel like a lot of people nowadays, because of all this shared universe stuff, they think that everything has to be in its own. Like when people say, "Oh, when James Gunn was announced as taking over DC," they're like, "Well, is the Batman going to be part of the extended universe?" It's like, no, the Batman's its own thing. It's not that it's a separate universe in the multiverse of DC. It's just its completely own separate thing. There's no connection there. But people are like, no, it has to be. Everything's got to have some, that kind of thing. Which is why at DC Fandom, they made the point of saying that, every DC movie is in its own continuity.
Well,
otherwise.
Alfred does say in the first half hour of the movie, and he goes through, I was there in 2011, 2005,
right, what I mean is that it's breaking the
1997. Like,
it's the logic of trying to say it's part of all those continuities is obviously not there. That's not what they're doing. They're basically saying that to the fans, because the fans have seen all those movies, so we're going to make a joke about it and have fun crossovers and references that you can't have in any one of those individual storylines. Like the Burton movies, you can't have references to things like, the Nolan stuff or the Batman 66, or the Schumacher films, you can't have references to the other stuff because it was its own thing. And the idea that everybody gets, they rake their brains over how is everything tied in continuity. I mean, I've heard people try and rationalize how the first 20 James Bond films are all in the same continuity, and it just, as like my brain is getting scrambled from the lack of logic. It's like, dude, they're just Bond movies. Enjoy it. It doesn't matter that they have the same cast going on. They're just having fun with it. Like when George announced that he was the fourth Mad Max, and they found out he was going to cast Tom Hardy instead of Mel Gibson. I'm like, well, what is this? A remake? A prequel? He's like, dude, it's just a Mad Max movie. Just enjoy it. You know? And that's kind of what they're doing with Lego Batman. It's like, it's just its own thing. We don't have to rake our brains over whether it's part of the continuity, because obviously this can't exist in the same universe as the Nolan.
But it does say that it exists in the same universe.
No, but they're making joke references. Like, if imagine
exactly, they're being flippant.
Because when they show the flashbacks, they're showing them as the Lego versions, and so you can imagine from the tone of this movie what the Lego version of the Dark Knight trilogy would be. So it's not showing. The reason why they don't, I think that they don't have Batman 66 in Lego form is because it's closest tonally to what they're doing here, which is why you see Adam West in live action, whereas all the rest of it is in Lego form.
See, okay. I didn't watch. I'm not excited about this movie. I haven't seen it. I've seen the first half hour. Thank you, Ernesto. And Jill also. I wouldn't have watched the first half hour if it weren't for Jill. But I'm saying that this is a flippant, jangly keys representation of Batman that is like, have you ever thought that Batman, this doesn't make sense about Batman, huh? And they do that over and over again. At least they did in the first half hour. And them taking the Bruce Wayne's name in vain so many times. I was just like, okay, fine, I get it. You're making fun of Batman. This is going to be a making fun of Batman movie. And I don't really care for that. So I didn't watch the rest of it. I felt like they were making fun of Batman.
In the same way that Austin Powers makes fun of James Bond without saying his name.
No, yes, in the same way, but at least Austin Powers is Austin Powers. He's not James Bond. James Bond wouldn't be so self-referential. Like the characterization of the Batman in the Lego Batman movie in the first half hour is like strong, independent, and doesn't need anyone.
Well, every Batman in every different iteration of it is a different Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I guess. Yes. You know what? It's personal preference. I'm a baby kicking and screaming in my crib saying, no, I don't like this. I haven't seen it. I don't like it.
A good tantrum.
This is fun. This was a fun movie. I like all that those references. Thought it was really funny. Because again, like the joke with Robin is that the reason they created him was to give kids somebody to relate to, which again, I don't understand, because it's like, you didn't give Superman a superpowered sidekick. Yeah, there's Jimmy Olsen, but he's not a superhero.
Well, didn't he have a dog?
Crypto.
Yeah, which came about later, but it's like, kids were fine reading Superman comics, so the fact that Batman, they felt the need to give him a sidekick, I never really got that logic, why the same writers who worked on Batman or Superman were fine with that, but with Batman, we have to give him a teenage sidekick. It was kind of, odd, and so it's like they're poking fun at the idea that Batman feels like he's already got everything under control, and then Robin comes along. It's like, kind of like when we were talking in the Batman 66 show about how, him and Robin work together really well, but Batman is still shown to kind of be the more adult between the two of them. Like when Batman goes to try and get rid of the bomb, and Robin's like, why didn't you just let it blow up in the bar? And he's like, they may be degenerates, Robin, but they're still human beings. And it's like, yeah, Robin acting like a little kid in that instance, because Batman still has to school him on things.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what they're doing here, except they flip it around where Robin actually has all the right ideas that we should be working together as a family, whereas Batman is like, no, just follow my lead.
There's a lot going on in the chat. Jill, what's going on in the chat?
A lot. Do you want to read the chat?
I guess.
And I love everything Kat's been saying all night. Perfect review and analysis of this movie.
Oh, then you're gonna love me.
Oh, what did you think, Ernesto?
I didn't care for this movie.
Okay.
When it came out, I went in there and with the same mindset and expectation as I did for the first Lego movie, because when the first Lego movie came out, I was already decided that this movie is going to be crap, that nobody's going to watch this, nobody's going to enjoy this. And mainly because before they even came out, they were doing those Lego TV shows on the Cartoon Network with what? Lego Ninjago and Lego Chima or something like that. And they look
Yeah.
very cheap, very unfunny, just for like under 5 year olds, essentially, kind of a TV show. And that was my expectation of what the Lego movie was going to be. So then the Lego movie comes out and it just blew all expectations out the water. That movie was fantastic from start to finish. And of course, you have Will Arnett as Batman, who just comes in there to swoop in and save the day. And he was the breakout star of the Lego movie. 3 years later, you get the Lego Batman movie in 2017. I think it came out in February, unless I'm
It was,
mistaken.
yeah, it was a cold month.
Yeah, and for me, Scott, you might have stopped at 30 minutes, but for me, the movie was very good at the first 30 minutes. After that, I just shut out completely. It stopped being funny. Yes, I got all the references. Yes, I understand what they were going for, but I barely laughed. There were some moments where I did laugh because it did carry that little blink and you miss sound effects that they do in the original Lego movie. Kind of like at the end of this one when they fix the city from breaking apart and it goes into like click, kind of a joke of how they fixed the city. So I appreciated that. I liked the joke of the shark repellent that comes back at the end of the movie with Bruce the shark from Jaws. So I thought that okay, that was nice. But for the most part, I'm like, I see what you're going for. I get it. It's not working for me. It's not funny. It's not as clever as I think they think it is. And I could not stand their portrayal of Dick Grayson in this movie. Like, I'm not gonna say what I won't say because it's not politically correct, but I was basically saddled with an intellectual disabled Robin the entire time. I'm just like, get this kid out of here. I don't like him. They should have just cast a random kid to just be Robin and not a Dick Grayson, because the whole point of Batman in this movie, Lego Batman, is he's the dumb one. Everyone else around him is smarter than he is, and he's not as clever as he thinks he is. And then they saddle him with someone who's just as stupid as he is, which kind of breaks the minutia of it. But overall, I thought that it's harmless. It's not the worst thing out there. I'm sure any kid will see it and love it. They'll become fans of Batman because of this movie and want to watch his other uh, iterations. I did appreciate the whole um, at the beginning when he's at Wayne Manor after saving the city from the Joker's bomb, where he's like looking at a portrait of Martha Wayne and Thomas Wayne, his family. Is just like he misses his family, and that to me was like, oh, that's a nice detail. It's the same thing as him being at the graveyard, looking at their tomb, kind of like hey, talking to his parents, like a regular person would do when they visit a loved one or a deceased person at the cemetery. And here he's just looking at their portrait and just like, hey, I saved the city. I hope you're proud of me. Because that's what he always wanted to do. He wanted his parents to be proud of him. So I figure, okay, that's a very deep reference to Batman that most people would probably not even acknowledge, except if you've actually been following Batman in the comics and the TV shows and in the movies. Of he lost his parents and he wants them back, but he can't. So he's always seeking their approval to the actions he's doing. And then of course Alfred comes in, scares him, and I like the whole point about Master Bruce. I have seen you gone through this phase many times, and he just goes through the entire pantheon of all of Batman
Yeah.
from. You want to say something?
From, well, no, I was agreeing with you. You can continue. I was just punctuating.
Yeah, so I just appreciate it. those jokes like, "Sir, if you don't mind me saying, I'm a little concerned. I've seen you come through similar phases in 2016 and 2012 and 2000 and 2005 and 1997, 1995, 1992, 1989, and I will one in 1962." And then you have Batman going, "I've aged phenomenally." And I also like how he says that you need to let people inside, you need to open your heart, you need a family. And Batman goes like, "No, I don't want to do that. No, 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 no. Boom. Boom.
Well, how many batarangs do you give it?
I give it a 6 out of 10 batarangs.
Is that better than your Batman 66 review? Do you think this movie is better than Batman 66?
I don't think I ever reviewed 66.
Well, but and if you didn't, now is your chance. Do you think that this movie is better than Batman 66, or do you think that Batman 66 is better than this movie?
I can't really say that one's better than the other. I think they're both in their own category of, because Batman 66 is the Batman people had back in 66, and based on the tone they were going for, it works. Here, it's basically, as I believe Kat mentioned earlier, it is a love letter. At the end of the day, it is a love letter to people who are fans of the Batman. Does it make fun of some things? Yes, it does. Does it work for me? No, but they are doing it from a loving place. They're not doing it because they hate Batman. It's just you take it or leave it, essentially, is what I'm saying. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. That's how I took the Lego Batman way. I get what they're going for. Most people would be like, "Oh yeah, I like this.
They're not
this,
trying
like
to deconstruct it or recreate it. It's
They
still,
are deconstructing it, though.
It's still,
But I can at least say that when you mentioned Batman the Brave and the Bold TV show, I would
Love
feel
it.
that show does referential better because it's supposed to go with the 1966 tone, but then it gradually goes into the more serious, darker tone of the Batman universe. It just needed to go a little silly just to introduce you to all eras of Batman. Here it's just, hey, this is everything that Batman has ever been and could be. We're just gonna have fun. And mind you, this movie is still in the Lego universe, so I can still imagine the same kid from the first and second Lego movies is playing with all these Legos, and he's causing a ruckus in Will Ferrell's basement.
Well, it's also it's kind of like I recently got the right here. You can see them all, the Batman Arkham series, which collects villains' storylines, their debuts. A lot of them, like Two-Face, Riddler, Clayface, Penguin, Man-Bat, Black Mask, Scarecrow, all these guys. And you read the earlier comics, their debuts, and a lot of them reads like some of the humor in this movie, but the difference is that there's nobody breaking the fourth wall to point out how silly a lot of it is. And so it's not that they made things up or to demean it. They just picked a lot of the same type of stuff that was already in the comics and just put it in there to be seen. And by a modern audience, it's kind of funnier than it would be otherwise. But it's still, I find that it works. How many batarangs did you give it, Jill?
I really like it, but it's not groundbreaking or anything. But it's really fun and cute. I give it about a 7.
What do you give Batman 66?
That's a good question. I don't remember what I scored but I really like Batman 66. I probably scored.
Is it better than this movie?
Or
is it the same? If it's the same, I can accept that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me it's about the same. I thought that was really cute too, but there's less of a story in 66, so maybe
this one's better. Okay,
yeah, maybe that gets 65 out of 100.
Yeah, I give this 7, which is 4 batarangs higher than I rated Batman 66.
Yes, you didn't. You were such a Buzz Killington on Batman 66.
I just didn't. That movie was just really stale, and it didn't feel like it had enough of a story to drag out for an hour 45 minutes. It didn't even feel like they were stringing multiple episodes. It was just this. It felt like they're going from one set piece to another that wasn't really building to anything. And I get it; they're trying to showcase all the stuff that's going to be in the TV show to get people excited about the show, as opposed to making a very coherent story. Whereas I found the format of the TV show to be a lot more enjoyable. This I like because, again, the pacing is very good. It races through the story. It keeps its focus on the characters. And all the stuff they're doing.
A car wash of jangly keys.
And it's still funny. No, because to me, Jangly Keys is where the only thing it has, or there's really no story, or it's schlocky, and it's just like, hey, let's just bring this back and do this because we can, as opposed to.
Okay.
They only technically do the Jangly Key thing 3 times whenever they list all the villains, they list all the iterations of Batman, and there's
I had to watch the first half hour of this movie with the closed captioning. I had to watch it that way because I couldn't hear any of the dialogue over the jangly keys.
Although I do like the Pilot Bill sequence when the Joker is pretty much explaining like the who's who of the Batman's rogues gallery, and the entire time Pilot Bill just has this deadpan, not impressed stare at the Joker, which I always kept laughing at because I'm just like, yeah, so Batman's gonna stop you anyway. And I laughed at him just like, this is true. Pilot Bill is on it. And when it's just like, did you make those last ones up? And I start laughing because I'm like, yeah, somebody who doesn't know anything about Batman's long history of villains would respond the same way. I'm like, wait, Condiment King?
But, okay. Again, at 34 minutes, I stopped, and that was after the Joker and his, like, all of the villains gave up. And then it turned out that the Gotham City didn't need Batman anymore, which I thought was a little bit like that's something that is fundamental to the question of Batman. It's like, well, what if Batman quit? Would that mean that there would be no more crime? And the answer in the Lego Batman movie at 34 minutes in is yes.
No, the answer is no, because it was just a ruse by the Joker, because he was going to play Batman. He played the Batman's expectations, like when he had Harley bring in the Phantom's own van there, making sure it was in his eye line, knowing he would see it, because he plays him like a fiddle to get him to bring him to the Phantom Zone so he can enact his evil plans. He's been playing him the whole time.
So what are you saying? I have to see the rest of the movie?
No, what I'm saying is that it's not that the city, it's not that a crime or that the city gave up. Is that the Joker tricked everybody into thinking that, oh, well, if Batman doesn't care about me anymore, then there's no point in any of us fighting him anymore. When in reality, it was just a ruse to bring in an even bigger threat to force Batman's hand into accepting that this is conceding to the Joker's caveat that this is a special relationship that we have. So it's not like and plus with Barbara representing the idea that we can't have vigilantism anymore. We should be working together as a family and taking the best aspects of Batman and uniting it to save the city. That's what she wants to do, but as we see in the movie, that doesn't end up working, because once the Joker comes out of the Phantom Zone with everybody, the only thing she could do is free Batman and say, okay, we need your help. So it is enforcing the idea that Gotham City does need Batman. It's just that the dumb citizen, the little like simpletons of Gotham think that, oh, all the villains have turned themselves in. We guess we don't need Batman anymore. Yay! And then you see how wrong they are when it hits the fan.
Yeah. The whole point of this movie was that Batman doesn't work alone by the end of it, and he allows people in his life, he allows himself to trust other people, which has been explored in the comics. Here it's just, oh, well, let's have fun with this. Let's take the romanticism that's been established even heavily in the Scott Snyder Batman run of Joker and Batman, but let's actually make it into a relationship. Like they even use adult language to explore. Like, wait, I'm not your greatest villain. No, that's Superman. I fight around, and it's like instead of saying I sleep around, he says I fight around. Mm-hmm. Like they make those jokes that would otherwise go over a kid's head, but you're supposed to get that this is basically adult humor they're playing with.
Well, and yes, it is adult humor, but it's also like I feel like the Lego Batman movie, from what I've seen, is it's a movie written by the writers of The Big Bang Theory.
I think this was funnier than anything on The Big Bang Theory. I didn't get, to me, that show was not a accurate reflection of nerd culture, because it felt like that show was written by people who don't know nerds or nerd culture.
Agreed.
Like, we're not nerdy, but I mean, we're not nerdy in that.
Yes, we are.
No, I'm saying not in the way that The Big Bang Theory makes everybody super socially awkward and weird. Like, yes, we have all of this stuff, like all my comics and all of my other stuff over here. And then all my movies and stuff and all the stuff we talk about on our shows, but we're not overtly weird and nerdy and weird totally.
Right. It didn't understand the differentiation between nerds and geeks, and I think that the IT crowd did get it because
yes.
Now, granted, I have met some people like that at cons, but they're very few and far between. And the Big Bang Theory makes it seem like it's like painting with a broad brush the entirety of geek culture. So no, I didn't feel that which is why I didn't really think that show was very funny. But then again, to be fair, I think like 99% of all comedies, be them movies or sitcoms, aren't funny anyway. Because to me, it doesn't
my issues with
it's like if I'm not laughing out loud, then it ain't funny. So this movie I thought worked for me more than in the humor was a bit more clever in terms of the way it's commenting on the whole history of Batman than anything I've seen in the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, and everybody in the Big Bang Theory at the end of the day are stupid. For as smart as they think they are, they're stupid. And the other thing that Kat, and I'll jump on what Kat said about, it kind of gives nerds and geeks a bad name because first or two seasons, they're fine. But then after a while, you're just like, okay, I get that you guys are, who you are. But look at yourself in the mirror, go in your closet, actually wear some clothes. Just because you're a nerd and a geek doesn't mean you have to act or look the way you do. You don't have to embrace it that much. It's a reason why people stay away from you.
Well, and you know how difficult it is to use the word thrusters in public? Like, I try and incorporate thrusters into any conversation that I'm having with anyone. And when I do it at the wrong moment and I see that look, is like, did you just say thrusters? Yeah. That's where I walk the line. Hey, like, is that a Joker? Or a Riddler? That's a Joker. Batman and a Joker.
That's a Dark Knight Joker.
Yeah, Dark Knight Joker, a Batman, and my most prized Lego possession.
Don't drop it.
Oh, right. Your Tumblr.
Yes.
Not to be confused with her Tumblr account, just a Tumblr.
Oh,
that's crazy.
That's
cool.
great.
2,049 pieces. I built this a year ago during January and February and posted a bunch of updates as I was doing it. But this was really cool. Yes, that's cool. Now we can actually see it better. So the top, actually, you lift up that mostly triangle-shaped top to put people. You see little chairs in there, kind of. So windshield wipers. The front was very difficult to assemble because of how tight everything is. You could tell that one of the tires isn't on exactly right. I can't even get it on the pivot stand that it came with because if you push it down too hard, it would cause the pieces to fall off. But yeah, that's the Lego tumbler that I've been meaning to draw for a while now.
Lovely toys.
Wonderful toys.
Wonderful toy. Absolutely beautiful.
And
that's glorious. That is absolutely glorious.
You see how pieces are already falling off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have anything Lego like that.
So, Scott, how would you rate the first 34 minutes of the movie? How many batteries?
No, I can't. I'm not going to. I can't. I've been told. I do have to see again, I find it to be sort of a cynical mockery. And I get it. And I know it, like some of the jokes that I was watching, I thought it was funny-ish. But I was just like, do I really and also in terms of, you don't know how my brain works. Like, I just came off of the Dark Knight trilogy when I was taking the Batman mythos very seriously. And now I'm watching the Lego Batman movie and I'm like, no, you just sound like an internet review board of being like, oh yeah, and then when that one time when he had the rope around his waist, he would have broken his back. And it's like, yes, I know. Like, maybe I felt reflected.
So you were expecting a 1966 Lego Batman movie?
No, I was not expecting a 1966 Lego Batman movie. I've been saying since we started talking about this movie that I have a distaste for Will Arnett, and I was not looking forward to this movie. Many people said that it was good. I tried to watch it, and I got bored of the joke after 34 minutes, and I had a nap instead of fulfilling my duties.
right?
This movie was not worth it. I would rather hear you guys talk about it than actually have to watch it. You guys watched it, so I don't have to. Anyway, I'm gonna do better. What are we doing next week, Kat?
A Long Halloween.
I know. I'm so looking forward to this. I haven't read the novel in a long time, so I have to read that this week. That's going to be crazy.
Kat, is this where you're going to be cross-referencing between the movie and the comic?
Yeah, because I haven't seen the movie before either, but it's on Max, and then I'll be reading the comic again as well.
So yeah, we're going to be...
I don't know if I'm going to do an entire scene-by-scene breakdown of it, because that would take a really long time, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even know how to get... It would be cool if we get comic book slides, but I don't know how to do that. So...
Can't you just, like, share screen?
I don't know, probably. Stop giving me answers. But yeah, so Long Halloween next week. And then, are we going to watch The Batman?
Yes, on the 20th.
You are.
Yes, I want to watch it. So, also, we're still debating as to what's going on with Batman versus Dracula and Batman with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That'll be likely back in July, because we have our upcoming other... I'm not going to mention it while we're still on the live stream, because we haven't made the announcements yet. But
which one?
Well, we're still streaming, so we'll get to that later. But
why don't you tease it?
I'm not going to tease it. So we're going to...
okay.
We'll talk about it when you end the stream.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to find out more, subscribe to our Patreon. We don't have one anyway. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to Long Halloween and The Batman. Jill, what are you up to on the internet?
On the internet, I have a channel called Antiderivative Jill where I review lots of science fiction stuff. Just today I reviewed Errand of Mercy on my channel, and next Tuesday I'm going to review City on the Edge of Forever, which is a wonderful episode, and I can't wait. And this Friday I'm going to have a UFO episode. Not sure which one it is yet.
Any children die in that episode?
Probably not.
Okay.
I think that was just a one-time thing, so sorry to disappoint you.
No, I'm just expecting children to die in every episode now.
No, but
they should all be destroyed.
Hopefully, I'll have some other topics too. Other than that, and
I look forward to it.
Thursday, I'll be here to talk about Bald Spaceman.
Bald Spaceman. Have you guys seen Bald Spaceman?
I don't have Paramount Plus.
Fair enough.
I don't know what
I don't
that
listen
is.
to
Keep
hip
it
hop.
that way.
It's Picard.
Oh.
No, it's not. That's the
I
fun
still
part.
don't know what
Yeah.
that is.
Star Trek: The Next Generation had a captain, and that captain was taken into the new Trek universe and killed and put into an android body, and now that's the season of Star Trek we're watching.
You might
But
as well
it's
be
not Star
speaking
Trek.
Mandarin to me.
We're really big Star Trek fans, and we're watching this show, and it's supposed to be Star Trek.
Supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
Oh, Trekkies always sucking up all these resources.
Trekkie's eating up your bandwidth.
I was looking up some books the other day, and it said how to cope with your Trekkie, and I was like, "What the hell is this? I need to read this."
So are we acknowledging that Trekkies are a subspecies of animal?
This book does, apparently. I need to read it.
I'm assuming it's next to Trekkies for Dummies.
But you won't find a dummy who's a Trekkie.
I'm looking at one.
Oh.
Low-hanging fruit, Bubba.
Yeah, well, pick it. It's the easiest.
Oh, it is. It was succulent. It was worth it.
What are you up to on the internet there, Ernesto?
Me?
Yeah.
Not much. I have my Twitter account at MartinezXYZ. Do not at me. And I have my YouTube accounts, Cinematic Universe Ultimate, if you're interested in looking at reviews from 2014 to 2017, starting with Captain America Civil War and
Nice.
ending with Atomic Blonde.
Are you going to get back into it at all ever?
We will see how this year goes.
Nice, as we do every year.
Oh wait, did we ever get to the chat?
Yeah, no, it's basically just Jill and Sci-Fi Nation talking. We don't really have to talk.
Is that all that is?
That's all the chat.
I don't
Lemon,
about the chat.
but also lemon pie. Thank you. Like there was, I think Sci-Fi was calling you. Who is this sea woman?
This was
Like-
literally a thankless review.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You did? Okay.
But yeah, we basically went over everything. There were some people taking shots. I went back under, and I was like, this lady has seen more movies than you can imagine,
True.
or something along those lines.
Yes.
And so that was the
Yes,
extent
and
of
I
it.
had to defend some kind of misconstruement that I do not think that Lower Decks is canon. I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah, there was an animated series Star Trek thing, and because we're not on a Star Trek show, I didn't want to bring that up.
Yeah.
I haven't
So-
seen it, but
But I
judging
only
by
wanted
the
to bring it up
promos,
I don't want
judging by the
anybody to think
promos
that-
of Lower Decks, it looks like they're trying to be Futurama in a franchise that does not need Futurama.
Well,
It's even
yeah.
worse than that. Futurama was good.
No, whether it's good or bad, I'm just saying that it's like they're trying to inject that kind of humor and the execution of it.
Well, it's made by somebody, one of the people who's making it worked on Rick and Morty.
Oh god
So that
damn it!
explains it to you.
Yeah, I don't get Rick and Morty. Like I don't get why that's so popular.
Well, I understand why it was popular when it first came out, but I don't feel like it has longevity. I'm an Archer fan, but I don't pay attention to modern Archer.
Yeah. Well, after he went into a coma, do we really have to care?
Yeah, exactly.
I
The
know.
moment-
I heard he recently came out of it, but that it's still not good. So-
Well, but it's something that, I enjoyed it when it started, but it's ultimately the same joke over and over again. So,
But you're right. We did read the chat.
we did read the chat.
We did great.
So do we have anything else to say? Do we have anything else to do here?
Not really. If there's no chat, we gave our batarangs, we did a recap, we gave our thoughts on the film.
Okay. So, well, then anti-derivative Jill, pleasure. Ernesto, pleasure. And Kat.
Just make sure, Scott, that you will have to watch the Batman, regardless of how you feel.
Oh, no, that's guaranteed.
I have watched
and
films in other series that we've done where it was a slog to get through it, but I still did it, damn it.
yes, and you can hang this over my head forever.
And
I
will send
apologize.
Ken over there if you don't.
I apologize for being delinquent in my duties. And you are the hero that the Fantasmagorium deserves. So, but you know what the best thing is?
Yeah.
I never said thank you.
And you'll never have to.